more things. Alright. If seeing and hearing is believing, then yay. We're gonna get started pretty immediately. Now I need to remind myself this game is like super quiet, so I need to both turn up my audio and turn up the stream's audio. If the game ends up being uneven and all that, then yay. If seeing and hearing is believing, then we'll get set. Now, I'm going to say a few things I said last time we were playing this, and I'm going to re-emphasize these points. This is... Yar. I meant turn the game up. That's what I meant. I'm not turning myself up, because the game itself is quiet. Now, what I was going to say, two things. First of all, this is not a blind Let's Play. I've played Alan Wake like 4 or 5 times. But I've been wanting to do it for Let's Play for a while, but this is definitely not a blind Let's Play. I first played the game when it came out. In fact, I picked it up at midnight, one of those deals that had a midnight release because it released on the same day as Red Dead Redemption. And I played it on the 360 then. I've also beat it before. I beat it like 2 more times on the 360, and I've beaten it once on PC before. Alan Wake, we are right now playing on Nightmare difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty you unlock after you beat the game once. We're not going for a 100% playthrough, but I am exploring quite a bit, which is making this take a lot longer than a normal Let's Play normally might. I think we got halfway through episode 3 last time we played. To catch people up, it's not very hard, partially because the game has these last time on Alan Wake, or previously on Alan Wake, recaps. The second thing is that Alan Wake... At this point, the story hasn't gone very, I'm trying to look at something. Cinematics, let's see. In fact, let's see if I can get the previously on. Basically, to recap the story, I just have to rewatch the first previously on Alan Wake stuff. You basically get the idea. So, basically, here's catching up the story very briefly.
Previously on Alan Wake. I came to Bright Falls with my wife, Alice.
Thank you for coming here with me. I thought maybe you could write here.
I don't want to hear it! God damn it, Alice!
Now, she's missing.
Alice? Alice?
I woke up behind the wheel of a crashed car. I'm missing a week. I was attacked by shadowy men straight from a nightmare. The sheriff took me to the lake Alice and I had stayed at, but the cabin had disappeared.
So that's a recap of episode 1, and then a recap of episode 2.
Previously on Alan Wake. I came to Bright Falls with my wife, Alice.
Thank you for coming here with me.
Previously on Alan Wake.
No, it's God to skip. I accidentally did the same thing. The recap of episode 2.
Previously on Alan Wake. Alice has been kidnapped.
Alan, please help me.
Alice?
You'll do exactly what I say if you ever want to see your wife again.
I can't tell anyone except my agent Barry.
Damn it, Barry, they'll kill her!
You're my best friend, and I'm worried that you're not right in the head.
The ransom is a manuscript I supposedly wrote that's coming true before my eyes.
It happened just the way it was on that page. So dark.
I have found only a few scattered pages.
I want the entire manuscript.
The deadline is in 2 days.
I found Mr. Wake's pages.
Good girl.
And so far, halfway into episode 3, we have a special FBI agent named Nightingale who's on her ass, who's convinced that we are doing foul play in the city of Bright Falls. So we were chased around by the police and escaped them, but the police were being killed off by the forces of darkness. As, for an example, a helicopter came after us, and it was killed by a flock of shadow crows, because why not? We escaped, and ultimately the last thing we did is that we fought the first boss in Alan Wake, which was a giant tractor being possessed by darkness that was trying to ram us over. We beat it, and now we're halfway through episode 3. Which means let us continue exactly where we were, straight back into Alan Wake.
Today, I would meet the kidnapper, and he would give me Alice. I wouldn't give him any other choice. A drowning man will clutch at a straw.
Give me a second, actually I'm going to do one more thing. Because there's a cutscene that plays right before this. And since this game is pretty good on loading, I'm just going to go to extras and then roll it through. Let's go to playback, cinematics, episode 3 ransom, and I believe we were at this point. So let's see.
I had never been this glad to see the sunrise. I had a couple of hours to get to the coal mine. wasn't far now.
And there we go. That's about it for catch-up. Now, Alan Wake is trying to get to the coal mine because the kidnapper of Alice, who is his wife, is trying to tell us that we need to meet him there with the entire manuscript or else they're going to kill her. So, yai. Which is exactly where we're going to resume. Let us continue. There we go.
Today, I would meet the kidnapper, and he would give me Alice. I wouldn't give him any other choice. A drowning man will clutch at a straw.
So Alan's being pretty desperate. Obviously, he wants his wife back from said kidnapper, but to get there, we have a little bit of daytime to get to the mines, which are over there by that mountain. In fact, I believe that mountain's name is Mirror's Peak, if I remember through Alan Wake mythology. And we have our first sort of daytime open world SQ session. This isn't exactly a sandbox, but it's got little side areas off the side to do, and we're trying to get to the Coal Mine Museum. We have this Bright Falls Power & Co. truck to get ourselves there, but being me, I'm going to be taking my time off the main road to explore a bit. Let's get ourselves to rev up a little bit.
Without realizing it, I'd come to believe that the story in the manuscript was coming true. The current of its narrative had taken me deeper and deeper into dark waters. Alice had been taken from me. Barry was probably in jail. I was a fugitive from the FBI. The whole world taken over by the dark presence was trying to destroy me. It all felt real, but it matched a textbook case of insanity. Even during daytime, I was being stalked. The bridge must have collapsed only moments after I'd crossed it.
There's Alan's explanation for why we can't go backwards. Bridge just goes boom. He blames it on the darkness. I just think it was a rickety old bridge, but what do I know? Now, there's a few little fun things to do with this sequence. I kind of wish there were more daytime sections in the game, personally speaking. They look nice. I mean, for a 5-year-old game, this does look pretty nice there. The lighting especially looks pretty good. And in my opinion, they have daytime lighting better than nighttime lighting. Though they do catch the nighttime lighting, but being dark, but not too dark you can't see. Anyways, we're going to hop out of our car in the meantime just to explore a few things. You can drive around this area, and there's a few cars you can pick up, but there's also things off the main road for us to try and explore, and this is one of the bigger daytime sequences that you get inside the game, because there's a lot of little side areas and multiple pathways. The reason why we wanted to hop out of our car here is because it turns out this area is blocked off, the bridge has collapsed, and they got little warning signs. I mean, I guess trees were falling over? Looking around in the environment seems to be what caused it. But I have to see. Yeah, it's kind of, for a 5-year-old game, this looks pretty nice. Honestly speaking, it's one of the games that I think has aged nicer from previous generation stuff. The PC version of it also looks very nice, so no worries there. Of course, that strange chair off in the distance catches our attention. So let's take a moment. Now, I've said this before, and those watching on YouTube or anything, or watched this last time, or just know the game by itself pretty well, will know that I've already played this before on PC. I've picked up coffee thermoses last time I played this. That's why there's no coffee thermos in this chair. That's one of the collectibles inside this game. But it's just a little red chair just to enjoy the view. Look at all those trees. At one point in development of Alan Wake, the game was supposed to be a big old open world sandbox thing, but they changed it to be more linear. Some people were upset with the change, but I think the game's fine as it is. But because it had an open world origins and the engine can support it, that's why they have nice little long lookouts like this there, so yai. Now neglecting that, let's go back through the woods. The forest has a few things that probably wants to demonstrate to us. There's also a few things we can see before we move on to the next big story point. Yeah, I'm gonna fall off here. You could take a car, but who'd want to do that? Also, for my own convenience, I'm of course dip myself into a ravine. As long as you kind of stick to a wall, you're pretty fine with dropping off anywhere. Unless that anywhere leads to one of the game's pits, like that crevice caffeine or ravine right over there. Caffeine, what am I trying to say? Now, there's a few miscellaneous things that you can do for no good reason, but the first big point of interest is going to be over this direction. Of course, I need to remind myself that Alan Wake has the stamina of an elderly man, so give him a moment. Actually, I still haven't shown what happens if Alan Wake gets completely tuckered out. This is actually about the result of it. He runs about the same speed as he walks. But if you give him a little bit of a leisurely jog, he'll catch up his pace. In fact, I think when the game originally came out, I think they've actually patched this, because I recall Alan Wake having to come to a halt, to a stop, and start breathing himself out. And he'd just start panting and panting. He would just completely stop when he ran out of stamina. But so far, I've not been able to replicate that, and I think I've never noticed this, but I think they've actually replaced that mechanic. Maybe they patched it out. I'm not sure if it's in the PC version or if they patched it out post-release because people were complaining. But it used to be that Alan Wake would be doing that thing where he'd just stand completely still and you wouldn't be able to resume control of him for a period of time if your made his stamina ran out. But for some reason, I'm able to make him do that here, and I think maybe they took that out. Anyways, we got radio here to listen to, so of course we're going to listen.
This is Pat Main, and you're listening to KBF FM. Folks, I want to apologize for kind of abandoning you to that looping music track last night, but I was detained. You see, I encountered a big-shot G-man with an itchy trigger finger who could use a lesson in manners and a boot in the ass, not necessarily in that order either. Now, folks, I know I'm not being very informative here, and I apologize for that. I really should just keep quiet, but I'm just so peeved right now, because some people just shouldn't be carrying badges. I'm just glad that our Sheriff Breaker was there to straighten things out. And if someone I met last night is listening, let me just say, I'm sorry if my mouth got you in trouble. I'm pretty sure you're not the bad guy here. Godspeed, son. I hope you know what you're doing. Now, on a lighter note, I'll be talking to Dr. Nelson all morning. But first, a little music.
We met up with the radio host, Pat Main, who runs the radio station we usually listen into right there. So he's pretty sure that we are not, in fact, the person the FBI agent Nightingale thinks we are, which is to say we are not a deranged psychotic killer. Or are we? Anyways, we're going to get back to taking cars from people miscellaneously on the road. I don't know why there's so many misc cars just sitting here on a forest road. I actually live in the area this game depicts, and I've hardly ever seen cars up in the mountains like this. Just completely abandoned off by a shed in the middle of nowhere where there are no people. I guess one excuse you could give is that people are being taken, so maybe these are the cars of the taken, the cars of people who have disappeared into the night of the forest. That's something to think about, but we're not going to think too deeply about it. Anyways, right up here we have, I guess, a lookout. There's also the Evil Dead reference card. I'm going to hop out in the meantime. I mean, if we want Alan Wake's version of Slenderman, going deep into the forest, collecting pages, manuscript pages in this case, being chased by a shadowy figure in the night, it could work. This does predate Slenderman. I have to admit, though, it probably could work. If somebody had the modding liability to do it, it could be a little bit interesting. Maybe a bit dumb, but interesting. Of course, there's more radios for us to listen to up here.
Welcome back to KBF FM. Hope you enjoyed that tune. Now, Doc, you were talking about life and finding that special someone, that soulmate.
Well, you were talking about that. I was saying I don't buy it.
Well, see, to me, that's strange, because I always pegged you as a hopeless romantic.
You got me there, Pat. But I think love's where you look for it. And you need to do a lot of looking, sure. But the idea that there's that one special person out there for you, and if you miss that chance, it's gone forever, and you're forever incomplete. I mean, isn't that depressing? Or, heck, childish even? There's plenty of fish in the sea.
And apparently a fisherman has a fishing analogy for everything. But what you're saying, isn't that a little harsh?
Well, no. What I am saying is that your potential for finding that connection isn't limited to what's essentially a chance encounter. How is that harsh?
Yeah, well, I guess that's a nice thought, but let me say something personal here.
Okay.
Now, well, I don't disagree with you exactly, but I can't really fit that together with what I feel, what I felt for someone, because she was the one. She was. And I let her drift away from me. Maybe I didn't put in the work, I don't know, but, well, since then, and it was a long time ago, but since then there hasn't been anyone, not like her. And I'm not saying I dwell on her or haven't moved on. I like my life. I'm not living in the past, but I do miss the way she completed me.
You can't argue with the heart, Pat.
I'm sorry, folks. I had kind of a scary experience last night, and let's just say it's shaken a few things loose.
Turns out Mr. Radio Show wasn't good with FBI agent shooting a gun in our general direction. But hey, you know, can't blame him. If I got shot at, I might be a little bit shaken up. I'm not particularly used to it, so yay. going over this direction. We still have to get to the mining museum. In fact, I think that we're pretty close to it. I could take a car, but from personal experience, I hate to say this, I'm terrible at driving cars in video games at the very least, and I've suffered a turn up ahead where I launch a car right off into the good old cliff and launch myself right off and die, and then I respawn over there, and it's happened to me more than once in Alan Wake, so I'm not going to trust myself driving this part. Not to mention that there's a few stops that we'd like to visit here, so yeah. Talk radio. The radio show host that we're listening to hosts a late-night talk radio. He's talking this morning, though, because he was detained last night and wants to apologize to users because he apparently left a song on endless loop for several hours last night, so yeah. Let's go check out this first part of the mining museum. Turns out it's a museum for mines. Who would have guessed? Now, I'll say something. I had some parents who were deeply invested in visiting any sort of museum they could. Be it art museum, historical museum, town museum, historical figure museum. And yes, I've had my fair share of mining museums. And just personal experience, out of all the museums out there, mining museums, unless of course they have a nice little twist to it, are often some of the most boring museums I've ever been to. It's because what is the museum going to depict? It's going to depict the same thing as any other mine museum does. They went into a cave, they dug out stuff, and they eventually left. There you go, story of every single mining museum out there. Maybe some people died because of cave-ins, but anyways, let me go pick this up and let's listen to, I guess, Sarah and the radio station. No, that's not it. Actually, what page did I pick up? Since right now, since I've picked up pages before, it's got pages for us to sort of glance through. I think the one that we picked up, geez, I wish I could actually re-see which one just got picked up. I think it's Sarah Distrusts Nightingale. Since it started at this part, I think it actually is Sarah in the radio station. Let's give it a shot.
With Nightingale gone and the night wind blowing in through the broken studio window, Maine stared at Sarah. The sheriff looked away. Maine's voice shook with barely controlled anger. That boy's doing more drinking than thinking. I hope you know what you're doing, Sarah. He's got a sickness in his eyes. You take my word for it. He wants Wake for a reason, and it's not for anything good.
The radio show host is on my side, it seems. Anyways, let's go run on back down. Also, drop off a cliffside and slightly break our legs, but that's okay. Alan Wake would have broken several femurs if he had several femurs. I guess he probably doesn't, because he's still alive after dropping down as many places he has today. In fact, speaking of dropping down, could I make that? I could make it if I drop down here. Let's do it.
I was early.
Oh no,
I was supposed to meet the
I made it.
kidnapper at noon in the main building. The coal mine was quiet. It was a museum now.
I almost killed myself, but we made it. Slightly, in a way, maybe. We also have this Bright Falls Coal Mine Museum to just sort of read here. While there were some early residents in the area, the true genesis of the town of Bright Falls came with the founding of the Bright Falls Mining Company and the opening of the Bright Falls Coal Mine in 1878. Although the work was hard and dangerous, most immigrants, Germans, Poles, Italians, Finns, and Swedes, among others, worked the mines. There you go. Also, there is a closed-off mine tunnel. It doesn't seem like the mining museum is particularly popular. As we can see, there's literally no one around. We can, however, take a look at the sign of the entrance here. Yes, that's visitor parking right there in those restroom stalls. Bright Falls Coal Mine, Washington Mining Corp. There's also a train over here. Let's go look at the train. If I can pass over the gate, which apparently I'm going to have difficulty doing. Alan, jump it. I know you're not the most physically fit of people. Well, we can see the train from here anyway. There you go. It's a train thing. Apparently, originally in this part of the game, they were trying to make it so that there would be a train sequence where you ran on top of a train, find Taken. That didn't end up in the final game, though. What do you say? While lucrative at first, the mine steadily declined in the 20th century. The seams were rich, but hard to get at, and the volcanic activity in the area made the mine shafts particularly dangerous. Turns out you shouldn't make mines next to a volcano. It turns out to be bad. Here's some stuff just behind glass, because that's obviously safe, especially when there's like no form of security here in the slightest. Welcome to Bright Falls Coal Mine Museum, where we enter the museum right over here to enjoy ourselves for the next several hours after reading this manuscript page. This one is about... Oh, that one was actually Sarah at the radio station, which means the one that we picked up was Mott on the ferry, actually.
For Mott, Spying on the writer on the ferry had been a disappointment. His boss had made Wake out to be something special, but Mott hadn't been impressed. He'd gotten a good long look at the wife, though, and he liked what he saw. Mott had fantasized about goading Wake into a fight, but it hadn't happened. Still, he'd get his chance to see if the writer had anything in him. He'd been promised as much.
That's about the kidnapper that we met on Lover's Peak in the previous episode, so there seems to be a bit more going on there. In 1970, a volcanic eruption below Cauldron Lake, while relatively minor, caused most of the deep mining tunnels to collapse or flood. 32 miners lost their lives in the calamity, and all mining around Bright Falls came to a final stop. Now many of the remaining buildings are protected as historical landmarks. It sounds like a mining museum to me, which means I want to make a snoring sound, but that's not going to work out too well. Anyways, we're at the place where the kidnapper told us to meet them at, so let's go.
I didn't want to go outside. Cops had to be looking for me. The noon sun turned the place into a sauna. The day dragged on. Different scenarios ran through my mind. Ways of how I'd torture the kidnapper to get Alice back. Or the different horrible things he could have done to her. I imagined her dead. I had no way of knowing she was still alive. It was killing me. I was running on blind hope. It was all a waste of time. The bastard never showed up.
And we get a phone call.
Wake!
Where the hell are you?
Change of plans. You know where Mirror Peak is? It's a big mountain north of where you are. You follow the path from the mine, you can't miss it. There's a lookout point there. I'll be waiting.
I'm through being jerked around
You
by
want to see your wife alive? Because if you do, you better watch what you say to me. Do we understand each other?
I want to talk to Alice.
Yeah, and I want the manuscript. Don't keep me waiting, Wake.
Hello? Hello? Ah! I'm gonna kill him.
Alan's not very happy about
I had to get to Mirror Peak.
You don't say. Well, very. I forgot that happened.
It was close. Maybe closer than ever before.
Turns out the darkness isn't very happy with us. And I don't think a rickety old building is the best place to be when it's not happy with us. Anyways, that means we have to probably make our way through and through these mining museum locations. Look at this exciting museum. Imagine all the people who must come here excited to learn more about the mines. By which I mean that I bet there's probably no one that comes around these parts because this would be a boring-ass museum. Not to mention it's not very well organized. Maybe they closed down the museum a while ago. Who knows? Oh, there's some ammo for me, though. I am full of revolver ammo. I do have a shotgun. Think we're good to go. Let's get the power back through or open up a latch door. About as good as me. Should we burn the place down? Maybe, but we're not going to burn it down. Let's hop on down, actually. And already out of the museum, out into the train tracks. Oh. But if we hear that song and everything's starting to get a little bit shilted, the fog's going to pick up and trees are going to start moving and the shadows are going to start crossing across the ground, and that means we're probably in a bad way. Let's pick up the manuscript page here. Thomas Zane in love with Barbara Jagger.
When Thomas Zane fell for Barbara Jagger, it happened fast. She was young, vibrant, and beautiful, full of life. He had never been a very happy man, and without any seeming effort, she had changed all that. Zane felt good for the first time in his life. Everything she did was another piece of a jigsaw puzzle he hadn't even known he'd been missing. And best of all, she made the words flow, strong and sharp. She was his muse.
Turns out a